I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Rory O'Sullivan. He's the founder and CEO of Grain Discovery. He's going to be talking about blockchain and the future of agriculture, the key to sustainable and transparent supply chains. Over to you, Rory. Take it away.
Good afternoon, all. I'm Rory O'Sullivan, and I'm from Grain Discovery, an ag tech company based in Picton in Eastern Ontario. Now, first, a little about me. I'm originally from a growing and a grazing property in the Mallee region of Australia. And I've been working in the ag industry over the past 19 years, both in Australia, Asia, Europe, and North America. I started out at the local grain elevator and had roles as a merchant, export logistics, trade finance, grains analyst, and before starting Grain Discovery nearly 5 years ago, I was running the commodity book at the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board in Toronto. Now, my talk today is going to tackle the most dangerous words uttered in agriculture. It's always been done this way. Split into two parts. First, a very high-level brief overview of blockchain, what it is, what's the hype, and second, how this technology will be used in the ag industry today. And I'll be detailing some pilots and some soon-to-be commercialized technology of this very soon. But first, how does blockchain fit in the tech ag hype cycle? Now, here I've grouped ag into five segments. First is the tech trigger, so commercial viability is unproven and unknown. Then we have the peak of inflated expectation. So early publicity produces several success stories. Some companies act, most don't. Then we have the trough of delusion. Interest wanes, adoption is slow, investment really only continues if the surviving companies continue to improve. And then we have the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity. So this is where mainstream adoption takes off. Now, blockchain, I believe, would be at the start of this cycle. Now, envision a supply chain with all its legacy technology, but operating as a common database that all participants can access, read, and the right to. An open source computing platform that provides consensus, giving the supply chain a single version of the truth. This is blockchain. Blockchain is an online ledger for record keeping and data sharing. And as we know, ledgers have been with us since the dawn of time. Now, a distributed ledger is just a continuation of this technology. Now, new data is added in blocks and chained to previous data entries. Each data cannot be forged or altered. You retain ownership and control of your data, electing to share information when it's beneficial to do so. So, for example, the elevator would share agronomic information of the end processor or the farmer they brought from, but commercially sensitive information like purchase or sale price would not be shared. Now, it's also important to note that blockchain is not a singular technology. It's part of a larger digital ecosystem ensuring information is recorded accurately. This data can originate from multiple sources: IoT, farm management, precision ag, sensors, or manually entered via an existing app. It's also important to note that blockchain does not replace legacy systems. Blockchain is a layer that's above your system and enhances it, an ideal tech enabler connecting these prior isolated data silos. And just briefly, blockchain is not Bitcoin. Blockchain was originally developed as part of the digital currency Bitcoin in 2008. The two are not the same. What the blockchain and Bitcoin have in common is the underlying technology. This enables data sharing in a secure and trusted manner between two parties. Bitcoin is a blockchain as the email is the internet, just one application of a broader network. Now, until now, the industry focus was on public networks. So this is where anyone could join and view all transactions on the ledger, think Bitcoin. But it's the private blockchains that will be utilized in the ag industry. These are permission networks where every user is firstly identified, they're verified, and then they receive access to data according to their defined role in the supply chain. Now, currently, most business ledgers operate in isolation, no network. So there's islands of information. Each participant controls their own data. So, for example, farmers, elevators, logistics companies, processors, sharing information is often manual, paper-based, and pretty time-consuming. Then we have the centralized networks. All data feeds into one single repository and overseen by a single authority. So think Facebook. Then we have the distributed networks. Each participant is independent but still connect with each other, equal players on a blockchain. This allows data information to be shared securely and quickly. Now, Grain Discovery believes the next wave of ag disruption will be built on blockchain, a revolutionary technology on par with the internet, allowing small participants to band together to form more efficient business networks, a new kind of digital ecosystem. Now, blockchain has the potential to be key in an ever-expanding toolbox of tech for the farm and the food sector by creating an information feedback loop by linking all important supply chain data together. Now, every new member joining this ecosystem not only adds value to themselves, but to any other participants. Blockchain is about collaboration for mutual benefit, a unified digital ecosystem allowing greater efficiencies and transparencies along the supply chain. Now, in the future, many diverse supply chain organizations would join as equals, offering their services in addition to bringing their own clients to share in the benefits. Now, we've touched on a brief background on blockchain and its benefits. Now, let's look at how this technology is being applied in the grains industry today. Now, modern ag is undergoing an important shift away from this pure commodities business where each bushel is considered identical to an ingredients business, where consumers demand distinction. They want more information, including where and how their products are produced, what inputs are used and why, and where and how the input ingredients are sourced. Now, the grain industry is immense. Every year across North America, there are 50 million trades worth a staggering $180 billion. Now, the supply chain that brings these commodities from the farm is very inefficient. There's very little information flowing to consumers who want to know where the food comes from, how safe it is it sustainable? And in between, we have the grain buyers, the processors. We're finding it very expensive to accumulate grain and share provenance information. Now, each of these organizations operates in its own data size, making sharing this information difficult. Now, providing better access to data sharing across the supply chain offers essential opportunities for industry stakeholders. The demand for more information will continue to increase, and trusting this information is critical to both supply chains and consumers. Now, this is important. If the end consumer cannot access the information they desire or trust the information they currently have, they will pay a lower price for a product regardless of its origin, which does not reward the producers who grow, market a premium product. Now, the idea of tracing attributes of the supply chain is common. The IP supply chain is the best known, where premiums up to 30% are achieved based on the variety. However, the current paper-based system isn't scalable and doesn't utilize modern software that is being adopted by the industry. And because the current system is paper-based, there's a tremendous amount of duplication of data entered by both the grower and the buyer. Now, these databases are still primarily paper-based, kept in filing cabinets. This produces admin inefficiencies and increases operating and managing costs. Now, what is unique and novel is digitizing this paper-based foundation. Data collaboration between seed companies, farmers, and processors doesn't exist or is ad hoc and manual. Now, for the first time, these disparate data systems will be connected, creating a valuable digital feedback loop between participants that hasn't existed before. Now, digital record keeping expedites data analysis, recovery, and security for third-party audits. So, for example, if contamination or fraud occurs along the supply chain, or simply a mock recall, it could be easily identified, isolated, and contained, saving the supply chain money and reputation risk as there are no costly recalls. Now, blockchain has the potential to improve efficiencies by coordinating organizations and institutions by minimizing the supply chain's costs of trust, transparency, and traceability. Now, Grain Discovery is the lead part of a Canadian consortium, which includes plant breeders, malt houses, breweries, industry bodies to digitize supply chain for the malt barley industry. Now, you think about the rise of the craft breweries across North America has really altered the beer landscape and focused greater attention on the origins of the key ingredient, malt barley. And so this value chain represented an ideal vertical to embrace this technology. And here's an example of just a basic barley supply chain here. So you start off with the seed companies, and the farmer buys these seeds, and the farmer sells to the first processor, which is the malt house. And then the malt house sells to the brewers. And for instance, in Canada, there's probably around 1,800 breweries from coast to coast. And then the certifiers, who not only certify the whole supply chain, and then we have us, the consumer, who enjoy the benefits of all the supply chain's hard work. Now, here's an example of what we did a couple of years back. Once you have now collated all this data from the supply chain and it's in a standardized format, then you can create this digital passport. Oh. Now the first step just highlights the seed in regard to where, like what type of variety it is, and then who was a certified seed grower. And you can really kind of drill down as much information as you can. So where they're located, when it was produced. And then we have the commercial farmer. So when it was planted, the yield, the seed rate, what fertilizer was applied. And then we have during the growing season, what crop inputs were applied. Potentially, what was like the rainfall during the growing season. And then what was the temperature? How did that impact the barley yields during that time in central Alberta? And then we have finally the harvest. So this is back in September, what yield it was. And then you can see, connection with the precision ag software in that header, where the best performing parts of the field was. And then we have the third quality testing. What was the quality of that barley? Moisture, and the consumer can really understand, okay, what does moisture mean? What does the plumpness mean, etc. Then we go to the malt house in regard to key metrics of when that was malted. And then the hops. Those hops were Sasquatch hops from BC. Information about the hops kind of type. And then the brewing process, so when it was brewed, what type of brew it was, and then some key kind of date metrics, so more about your brew, and then information about brewing history, and then finally the canning. How fresh is that beer? How much beer was produced? Was it in cans? Was it in kegs? And then what date it was canned, and then finally we have like a map of where actually all those locations are. Now, what's the value prop of the industry? So for the seed industry, it provides data for better decision-making analysis, develops a provenance and terroir of varieties with associated price premiums, and really builds a stronger case for certified seed. Now, for farmers, really it's an opportunity to participate in consumer-driven, value-added programs that delivers a price premium. For processors, it really allows them to save time and money through easier maintenance of their clients' accounts. Now, for processors, for the brewers, they can easily respond to consumer demands for traceability, drive sales either as a differentiator or through higher premiums through the development of terroir and provenance. And for the grain industry, in general, enhances Canada's brand and international competitors as a premium supplier and really improves market access. And for us, the consumers, the ability to meaningfully engage with the products they consume, sparking greater confidence in the products they'll buy, and also be better educated and informed on the supply chain practices and partners. Now, commercial viability will be driven by connection, transparency, and verification of the products they consume. Now, we believe boutique processors will be early adopters based on their economies of scales and close relationships with upstream suppliers. And their primary breweries customers are mid-size who would embrace this digital passport as a really key differentiator and really a continuation of their strong storytelling. Now, Grain Discovery believes growing regions can be branded and be associated with certain agronomic traits and premiums, similar to the wine industry today. Now, quickly, this technology can also be utilized for the ethanol industry. So currently, the ethanol industry calculates a lot of these metrics on a macro scale, but utilizing this granular technology from the farmer base and capturing it and auditing from their existing software, each farm now can be assigned its own carbon scorecard. Now, the ability of blockchain to trace specific characteristics and traits along the supply chain allows ethanol plants to target now low carbon corn and pay premium to attract farmers that wouldn't be compensated for this practice in general circumstances. Now, key takeaways. The food supply chain must be proactive in embracing technology to meet traceability demand and to remain competitive as a premium supplier. While it's increasingly difficult to compete with other sources of origin, the best way to differentiate itself is through quality and sharing where and how the products were grown. Now, this trend of source verification is going to really reshape the industry as it increasingly becomes a necessity to access premium and most other markets in the future. So to summarize, the industry is on the cusp of rapid growth and will soon see exponential growth in investments regarding traceability. one of the first successful adopters of blockchain with the supply chain for supply chain traceability. And finally, necessity drives innovation. The industry is in transition and must adopt new technology to make it happen. And finally, stay ahead of the technology curve. Thank you.